A Look at Finance is underwritten by Janney Montgomery Scott, trusted advisors for generations.
Welcome back to Look News. Stephen Carlton, the first Vice President, Janney Montgomery Scott, here with our weekly look at finance. Hello to you, sir.
Thanks, David. Good to be here.
Good to have you here. We're quickly coming to the end of this year.
Can't believe it.
Our second to last segment of 2013. Let's start with some local news. Economic Development Council Awards being handed out yesterday. Of course, we talked about this a little earlier in the broadcast. $715.9 million from the governor. I guess
Santa came early.
Well, I guess from us.
Yeah.
Taxpayer money going back into economic development, but we always say from the governor. A lot of money coming to our area. We detailed some of those projects earlier, but I wanted to get a little closer into one because we often talk about how great downtown Saratoga is, how how prosperous it is. Glens Falls to the north, downtown, that's still trying to determine what its niche is, how it's going to develop. Getting $2.5 million towards a mixed-use building. This is the second time they got cash for this. They got $500,000 last year. I guess putting this money in the coffers because it's a $23 million project, and then $675,000 for renovations to the Civic Center.
Which is absolutely, both of these projects are needed. The Civic Center, we've been talking about this for a year now, about losing the hockey team, needing to make some changes to that building, and I think that'll be put to good use. But the mixed-use building, although they haven't picked a site yet and firmed up on it, now they have enough of a percentage of the money for this that they can start looking at building this out. And I think this will start to ramp up, we'll see, over 2014.
Yeah, I guess if they have that amount of money in the bank, then they can start shopping for loans and all the different kinds of other funding that they may need, and go to other elected officials and say, hey, wait a minute, give us some more bucks.
It's the tipping point. Once you get beyond 10-15% of the capital required, then money starts coming in, and nobody wants to be the first one in. So this is a good sign from the governor.
Two great projects, because if you put this mixed-use building and connect it with the Civic Center in some way, obviously parking is always a bit of an issue in downtown Glens Falls. It's like Saratoga. When we said parking was an issue in Saratoga, they built that huge parking lot on Woodlawn.
And it's still an issue.
It's still an issue because everybody wants to park at the front door.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
So some good news there. That was just my own personal commentary, I guess.
I had a hard time finding parking this afternoon. I couldn't believe it. So yeah, Saratoga's always been a little bit of a challenge, and I wanted something within 30 feet of the...
Well, yeah, because you only work 2 blocks away from our studio.
I think I might be getting a little spoiled.
It is cold out there today. You are forgiven. Hey, some news from KPMG. They did a survey of CEOs in the chip fab industry. Of course, we're invested in this with Global Foundries. A third of CEOs in the chip industry expect it only to grow by 6 to 10% in 2014, but most predict less growth than that. So not an overly confident outlook for 2014 in the chip industry.
Well, it's funny that we say this because we're a little spoiled again for the chip industry. When we're looking at the growth of the overall economy at 2 or 3%, and the chip is expected to be somewhere between 6 and 10, that's still quite a bit further beyond most of traditional manufacturing. And for this area, having 260 different organizations and companies doing research in this area, if having 6 to 10% growth could be huge, a real benefit for us.
Yeah, so not horrible report.
It's really not. I think we've become a little bit spoiled at some of the high double digits that we've had in the last few years. But if we could continue to grow at that 6 to 10% range, that's extremely positive.
All right, let's get to a horrible report. The unemployment numbers, a big miss in the unemployment numbers. It was 360,000 plus, should have came in at 320.
This is this back and forth, you and I have talked about for a couple of years now as we work our way through. And it's a little surprising because typically this is the holiday season where there's a lot of hiring going on. Typically the layoffs don't happen until after the holidays. A lot of the temporary employees, the Targets, all the different stores that hire for the holiday season. So it was a little bit of a surprise there. But the interesting thing I've always said is look to see 3 or 4 of those numbers coming in a row.
Yeah.
And this is kind of the exception now. Typically we're seeing in the low 320 range. So let's see if it holds.
I don't know if I'm living under a rock, but I didn't really notice that many holiday hiring signs this year. And perhaps that is part of this.
It typically, we see things like, J.C. Penney, and that's another company's having difficulty. But typically they start hiring in, early November to start stocking things up. But I think if we see the numbers in the new year, they probably won't be as strong as in some of the other years.
Yeah, J.C. Penney's a company that's still trying to find their identity after going in a different direction, doing a U-turn,
pulling back, and
you can see that right in the Saratoga store where half of the renovation is done, and then there's duct tape on the floor, and the old store is still there.
Yeah, it's not the exception.
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing. And I think the retail space with consumer spending, I mean, we were talking about the Thanksgiving holiday being an extra day for shopping, and there just wasn't the amount of people out there. So we'll wait and see how this looks this year.
We haven't got long left. We're packing too much into our shows these days, and you're the victim of that. The Dow down for a third day in a row, triple digits. What's behind this?
You know, the market's selling off. There's a little nervousness because the Fed might taper a little sooner. And by taper, all that means is that the Fed is going to buy less bonds than they bought in the past. Not that they're not going to buy any bonds or they're going to raise interest rates, but I think just general nervousness. I think people are getting a little bit overzealous and a little bit nervous, and these unemployment numbers being lower than expected or higher than expected might put some of the pressure off of Janet to not be too quick to raise things.
Some good news is the U.S. budget deal.
Yes.
Nancy Pelosi embracing the suck.
Yeah.
Which was quoted an aide to her, or somebody in the meeting quoted her that they had to take extension of unemployment benefits off the table to get a budget deal. Nancy Pelosi said we have to embrace that to get a deal.
Couple quick things. It's good news because we less worry about government shutdown, a little bit more stability with the sequester in place, or the cutbacks are being pushed farther down the road, and having that certainty and the bipartisan vote on this, if this can get through, and Pelosi can get everybody in line on the Democratic side and Boehner on the Republicans, then we're going to have a little bit more certainty. And I think that certainty will help the stock market going into 2014.
All right, Stephen Carlson, First Vice President, Janney Montgomery Scott. I'm going to say this real quick because we're out of time.
Yes.
Next week, major predictions for 2014.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting year.
All
Looking
right,
forward to it.
We'll see you then.
Thanks, David.
Thank you, sir. Now, to see this segment, all our segments, head to looktvonline.com. That's the website. That's where we post it. And stay with us. Still to come, we'll take a look at the closing numbers from Wall Street. We'll see how they closed today. Plus, we're still tracking the potential for snowfall this weekend. We'll have your full forecast coming up.